I'm Tim Bradner. Welcome to Capitol Fuse, and welcome today to Representative DeLena Johnson from Palmer. She is now representing District 11, and I gather that's going to become District 25. Is that right, Representative Johnson?
Yes. Well, we're all getting our numbers switched up. So District 25.
Well, it's
District 11 now, though, and that is currently, and maybe I'll be the representative in the future. I don't know.
Yeah. People have always thought of you as representing Palmer, but maybe you could describe the boundaries. What areas of the valley are you is in your district now, and then how that would change also.
Yeah. So Palmer stays this focus of the district, both the current district and the new district. The current district, I have the Palmer-Wasilla corridor. I go all the way up to the boundaries at the Wasilla city limits. So I do represent over towards the Wasilla side, all the way to Seward Meridian, and the Parks Highway, which is where Walmart is. And so all of that gateway area, I have the university, the hospital. On the eastern side, I go up Lazy Mountain, and I take in a little of Lazy Mountain. So I go across the river, but it's kind of a long oval district with Palmer on one side of it. That's a great district. I love my district. And the new one will actually takes out the central core area. I go out the Palmer-Wasilla Highway some. They've taken out the hospital and the university, just kind of cut off that little section of the gateway and given me the Butte area, which actually works out pretty well because people in Butte think of themselves as being residents of Palmer. And so I feel like if that's where I end up representing, I think I'll have a great connection there too.
Well, the Palmer area in the Mat-Su is always thought of as Alaska's, major agricultural area. And is how are things doing for farmers out there? There's new interest, a lot of interest this year in food security.
Well, we found out in COVID, all these times that we talked about, how much agricultural do you need? Because there can be, we have trucks, we have trains, we have, well, not quite a train all the way down yet, but we have boats, we have airplanes. And then all of a sudden those things didn't work so well. And food security became very, very much the forefront. And Palmer, was the center of agriculture identified by the scientists at the federal government in the early 1900s. They sent scientists up here. I think they had 9 experimental stations, and they did experiments all over the state of Alaska to identify agriculture where it would be, because it didn't happen organically. We didn't have an agricultural community that has grown up, and they identified the Palmer area as the best weather, soils, and so on. So one of the challenges, of course, is there's a lot of population growth, and those farmlands, of course, are wide open and perfect for development. So there's always that kind of challenge between, and that's a challenge all over the country, between disappearing farmlands and with beautiful farmlands and development. And you can't blame anyone for trying to make sure that they get the most out of their properties. But agriculture has become the forefront in our discussion of food security. So we have definitely want to see, like we have Vanderwheel farms in our area, and they produce a tremendous amount of the vegetables in the summer that if you go to the farmers market in Anchorage, they are there all the time. They do food shipments to all over the area, but we only grow 3 to 5% of our own food here in the state, and that includes every potato field that you see. Everything that you see out there, that's 3 to 5%. We lost Havemeister Dairy this year. That's kind of a big deal. We have a dairy coming on in Delta. That's we have made some changes here in the law to make that a little bit easier. But it is a challenge to do agriculture in Alaska. So my hat's off to anyone that wants to put the effort, the time, and the hard work in for that agriculture, because it's a definite necessity, but so hard to continue in Alaska. Not an easy place to farm.
Well, when we see in Anchorage, when we see all the farmers markets around and all the fresh produce and cars and Fred Meyer's, we know where a lot of it comes from. And you're from your district.
Yes.
Representative Johnson, how long have you lived in the area? Tell us a little bit about yourself also.
So and I not to brag here, but I think I might be the only valley person that was raised and spent my whole years in the valley. I grew up in Talkeetna. I wasn't born here, but I came to Talkeetna when I was 3, and we just kind of like chopped out a shack out of the woods. My parents did, and like a lot of people in Talkeetna, we weren't that unusual. But I grew up in Talkeetna. Went to high school, Sioux Valley, moved to Anchorage for a while, went to college, and then back to the valley with Wasilla, kind of heading towards Talkeetna again, and then finally ended up in Palmer. But Palmer, when I was growing up, there really wasn't a Wasilla. We came to Palmer for all of our goods and services. It wasn't until the mid '70s that Wasilla really took off. So I always thought Palmer was the big city. It was like you had arrived when you got to Palmer. So I still feel that way coming home. It feels like Palmer's the place to be.
Well, it is a nice town. When you were living in Talkeetna, when you were young, did you have to take the train up there, or was there any kind of a road?
No, the road was built in '64 to Talkeetna. I mean, the highway was built through to Anchorage. From Anchorage to Fairbanks was completed in '72. The bridge across the Hurricane Gulch, I think, was the last bridge, and then the Susitna River there at Talkeetna. So my dad went to the end of the road, and because Talkeetna was as far to the north as you could go by car at that time, but you could get to Talkeetna. Like I said, the spur road was built in 1964, and we came to Alaska and built there in '67.
Yeah, a lot of history there. Uh, I mean, the Parks Highway was. It's interesting that the Parks Highway was, I think, one of the last major roads that we built in Alaska. We just haven't been building any roads or highways in recent years for a lot of reasons. No.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I'm when you say that, I'm thinking about it, and I was trying to remember, what other big road projects that have went anywhere new. I'm not recalling anything.
I think probably the last one, uh, somebody's going to correct me on this, is probably to Skagway from Whitehorse, which the Canadians actually paid
Yeah.
for, the Klondike Highway. Well,
Mhm.
Representative Johnson, this is fun to talk about the history, and thank you for joining us. It's a lot of interesting things happening in your area, and it's certainly a nice place. You can't blame people for wanting to live there and move out there.
I have one of the fastest growing districts in the state, so people are wanting to move to Palmer.
Well, thank you for joining us.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Okay.